Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I am so excited because this year I'm definitely branching out, I should say, and I've been learning different things. I'm taking new certifications in different areas. I'll share more about that later, but one of the courses that I'm taking talks a lot about the topic that we are going to share today on this solo episode. And, I just always love to share things that I learn with you guys. So, one of the things that was really interesting to me in this class that I'm taking is when we talked about passions, purpose, life purpose, and just interests in general. So, this topic really got me thinking because I have talked with some of my friends. I've talked about this with other women, especially moms. And a common thing that we experience is that as we get older and possibly get into our jobs or, our role as a parent, the interests that we've had in our past or our favorite hobbies, they kind of fall by the wayside. And we get so busy and wrapped up in our own obligations that it can be hard to remember to make time for these things that we used to do and love. And, honestly, sometimes we maybe never even had anything that we felt deeply passionate about or a hobby that we really loved. I love to share this story about my husband and I when we kind of first started dating. And I remember one time he's always had hobbies, just so many hobbies. He's always learning something. He's taking on some type of project. It's like the running joke. But that's how his brain works. He finds it interesting, and he's never been like the type of person who will just sit on a Sunday and watch TV. It's more like, okay, what are we going to do? What's his hobby? What's his project? And I remember one time I was irritated. I was like, we could be doing something and you're doing this other thing, this hobby, this project that you're working on. And he looked at me and he's like, well, maybe you need a hobby. And I was like, flabbergasted. I was offended, actually. And then I thought about it. I was like, I don't have a hobby. I don't have hobbies. And I did have a hobby of going to Sunday brunch with mimosas. That was a big hobby of mine when we first started dating. So I guess you could say my hobby was going to the beach and getting brunch, but not a great one, actually, not a great hobby to have. So yeah, it was at that moment when I was kind of like, wow, I'm a young woman. I work hard. I have a full-time job, but I don't really have anything outside of work that kind of lights me up. There's fun and social, but then it wasn't really a hobby. And I started to seek things out. I remember taking knitting classes, and I started to make my own jewelry. And so I started to do things like in the evenings and when I had time on the weekends or if we had downtime, and I just started taking classes and learning different things and finding what interested me. And those things sometimes lasted and sometimes not. But, one of them was becoming starting to make my own skincare. That was a hobby. That was like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is so much fun. I'm making deodorant. I'm making body butters. I'm making all this fun stuff. And then lip balms. And then one day I was like, this is good. I should sell it. So you never know. But that's kind of a little story about how I decided I needed to start doing these things for myself because I did feel like there was a little lack of hobby, interests, passion for things outside of my work week. And that was something that has really served me. I've really enjoyed looking into different things and trying to figure out what that is. And so today I want to kind of share a few ways in which you can do that and just some examples, because I think this is, from what I've learned recently, super helpful and I think very effective. So I know that a lot of my friends that have older kids, when they leave the house, they're going to college or they're moving out and getting jobs. Some of them have said they feel very unfulfilled. They're really, really sad. And they have spent so many years really being there for their children and kind of doing everything for everyone else. And then that stage is over, that season of life is over. And then they get to the next stage and they're like, now what? And so, I mean, it's never too late to do this work, but it's nice to start and have something for you. So I think that is what a lot of people talk about when they talk about incorporating self-care into their life. Of course, this can be going to get a pedicure, but more importantly, I think it's finding time to do what fills your bucket. And that looks different for everyone. And I think that's what I want to share today are some ways where you can figure that out, because some people might not know. I don't even know what I want to do or what makes me happy. One person might like getting up early and watching the sunrise and going for a hike or surfing or whatever it might be, like taking a cooking class, laying on the couch and reading a book. That is lovely. That's such a good passion to have. I have a friend who reads tons of books and she's passionate about it. It's like something that brings her a lot of joy. Doesn't have to be career related. Passions are just activities or tasks that really light you up and excite you. So it can be anything and it's personal. So today I want to share a few ideas about how we can think about this. If you feel like this resonates with you, I know a lot of women who do a really great job of this already. They have clubs, they have their tennis on Tuesday nights. They have whatever brings them joy, whatever project they're working on. They're already doing it. They're already making that time. But for a lot of people, and I would say most of the people that I talk to, that's not the norm. So I hope some of these ideas are helpful for you. I know some of us may feel bad about, like, why don't I have something that I love? I think that was the feeling that I got that day that my husband told me I needed a hobby. I remember thinking, like, I felt like bad about myself that I didn't have something that I was passionate about or that I was really good at. And by the way, you don't have to be really good at, something that brings you joy or is, very, very fun or brings you a lot of joy. You don't have to be good at it for this to apply. In fact, a lot of times you're not good at it, especially if you're trying new things. I do feel like that's kind of how I am. I try a lot of different things and maybe I'll never be expert at any of them, but it's fun. And that's kind of the point for me. This doesn't come naturally for everyone. Like I said, it might take a little digging when it comes to figuring out what it is that lights you up, especially if your life is so busy and overwhelmed and like all your obligations seem to be running the show. It's like there's just too many things. I can't imagine. I just talked about this with a friend, just trying to figure out when we were going to go and have a walk. I was like, damn, we are busy and we're really running around a lot for our kids and a lot for other people. So it almost is like, okay, we got to make this happen because we matter too. What we want to do matters too. So the first thing you can do is if this is you and you're like, where do I start? I heard, why don't you start by looking at your childhood? It can be helpful to look back and reflect. Okay, what did I used to love to do? What was super fun? What brought me joy? Or another idea to think about is like, what did I want to do or be or, try out when I grew up? My mom said I wanted to be a fire truck. So this isn't always helpful. I can't, that's not going to bring me joy to be a fire truck. But look back, like, did you play a sport? I have friends who are like, oh, I used to do this sport. And actually, I know one friend who joined a women's league for soccer because she used to love it as a kid. So something like that is awesome if you have something really great like that. I actually didn't have much as a kid that was like that, especially when it comes to sports and like physical activity. So that's something that I just tried new as an adult. I did love being outside. I spent hours outside exploring. I'd jump in the pool with my pajamas on. Like I just loved that feeling of being outside a lot. And that's something that I still completely love. And that is definitely something that I have to schedule in to do more because it makes me so happy. And that is also something that I really want my kids to do. So that's like something I can do as a family. And that I'm not just saying, okay, this is just me time, but it's a passion that can be involving everyone. The second thing or the second question actually, I like to ask is, what do you love now? I love this as a brainstorming activity, just like sitting down with pen to paper and saying, okay, what do I love? And sometimes we forget to think about what lights us up. And you could just make a list and try out some things that you haven't tried out before, or try something that you have tried out. And in my class, I remember doing this and I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of things that I love to do and I'm not doing any of them. So it was a great reminder of a way for me to try to figure out how to weave this stuff back into my life. The third question you can ask is, what can I try? This is fun. Like, I always love trying out something new to see if it's something I could really enjoy. I know there is a few people in my life that have completely fallen in love with pickleball. I have not fallen in love with pickleball yet, but I have friends who are obsessed. They have met new friends. They're in groups. They have outfits and their little cute pickleball paddles. And I have one friend who's actually not exercising whatsoever. And I think like her neighbor asked her to come to a court and she taught her how to play pickleball. And she is the most enthusiastic pickleball player that I know. She went from literally never being physical, she just didn't exercise, she didn't move very much, wasn't her thing, to I think she goes to the courts every single day and she's obsessed. She has like new best friends. She has just such a passion, like crazy passion for this sport, which I know this is a very popular thing. We've talked about this on the podcast before, but it's like a phenomenon. And so I just, people who are like never have done anything like this or tennis or anything, and they just completely fell in love with pickleball. And she lost a bunch of weight without even trying, just from moving. And like, she's so happy. She is getting the social time that she didn't get before. She's got a very stressful job. So this is just such a great outlet for her. So I love that. She really lights up when she talks about it. You could just see it in her face. And this is just because she tried something new. She said yes, which I love. I love doing this with fitness classes too, because it's so positive. It's like you're getting a good workout. If you take a friend with you, you're trying something new. I always love doing that kind of thing, or checking out a new gym or whatever it might be, because you never know what's going to kind of click and just be so much fun for you. And it's so positive, like healthy stuff I love. Okay. Fourth question that you can ask is, what matters to me? So this kind of talks about, what are my values? What's important to me in my life? And it's just another area to look at. What are meaningful values that I stand by? And what are things that I can incorporate that align with that? What are you interested in doing that also matches up? I mentioned being outside. For me, that's something that's really important to me. And especially if you've listened to my episode with 1,000 Hours Outside, Ginny Urick is so inspiring. And ever since finding her, yes, like she inspired me. But when I actually sat with her for an hour and she told me everything about why it's so important to be outside, that really became like, that just clicked for me as a mom. I'm like, okay, this is really important to me. This is a value to me. So, okay, now that I know that is so important because of my children, and just of course as adults too, but especially with our kids who they're on screen so much, even if we try to minimize it, but like even if we had zero screens at home, they're still on screens at school. So that's just one of the reasons it's good to like counterbalance that with outside time. But how can I take that value and incorporate it into something that's interesting to me, that I'm passionate about, that I love doing, like getting outside with my kids, going on a hike, being at the beach? Those are just different ways to take your values as a family, as a person, and incorporate that into something that lights you up and makes you happy. I think this whole process can take a little bit of time to kind of figure it out if you don't if it's not top of mind, if it's not something that you think about, if you're kind of like helping everybody else in your life find their passions and do what is helpful to them. This could take a little bit of thought work, but I think it's really worth it. Another thing to think about as far as tips go for exploring ways to find something, add something into your life that brings you passion and joy is to be open. Be open to trying new things. Like my friend who said yes to pickleball, saying yes to that friend really changed her life. So, in such a positive way. So, be open when you are trying to look for something to add into your life and seek it out. I also have a friend who had really good luck with finding a hiking group. She was a hiker, but she didn't like to hike alone. And it was one of her favorite things to do on the weekends. And so she went to meetup.com, which I remember my mom and I using meetup.com like years ago. And we were a part of this independent, I think it was an independent film group or something. And we would meet at different theaters and watch independent films. It was so much fun. Or we'd go to a coffee shop or try, we would just try new things, try new movies. Especially, this is so great if you're also not from an area or you're new to an area and you're like, I want to do things, but I don't want to do it alone. That's a good thing to take a look at. So the next tip is you got to schedule it. You got to schedule it in because if you don't schedule, somebody else is going to schedule you. So I feel like taking the time, look at your calendar, make sure you actually get this time scheduled, schedule it in. I've talked about this multiple times, but I love tennis. I love taking tennis classes. And I honestly don't remember the last time I played tennis. And it's just because I keep getting it bumped. I'm bumping my own schedule because good reasons. Like it's kind of at an inconvenient time of the week. There's only one class right now that I can take, and there's always something that comes up, I feel like. So it's really easy to just push that aside. But I'm going to take my own advice here and I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to make sure that I figure out a way to get to that class because that's really a no-brainer for me. That's one of the things that I found in the past 5 years that I just never thought I would like that much. And I'm not doing it regularly, which is, I got to get on that. So I really miss it. I really want to make it a priority because otherwise it just won't happen. So if you are like me and you have something that you love, but it keeps getting bumped, try to schedule it. And again, I think this is really important to say. You have to be realistic about the season that you are in your life. I did not try to do a lot of this stuff when my kids were little. There was no capacity. That wasn't my priority. But I feel like as the kids get older, your seasons change and the things that they need change. It's, a good reminder, especially if you've been kind of stuck in small kid world for a while, to take some time to do what you need to do and look at what your needs are. So if you do find something that you love and you're interested in, you can go deeper with it. If it lights you up, keep going. I think that's another thing that I kind of touched upon is that working on things that bring us joy and that are interesting and that become passions for us might take practice. If you're trying something new, depending on what it is, there might be a learning curve. It might not always be fun in the beginning, but stick with it if it's something that you can see has potential. I really do feel like this is true for some of the things that I'm doing right now. I feel very passionate about what I'm learning and some of the classes that I'm taking, and I feel like I will be good at them one day. And I'm not right now. So it's like that beginner's mind, they call it, just trying to be open. I'm in the learning process of a few things. I may not be an expert and it might be a little challenging in the beginning, but I'm going to keep going because I can feel excited about it. And I know that it's definitely like bringing me joy, even though it might not be easy all the time. I really love talking about this finding joy too, just in general. And there is another episode on the show. I'll link it in the show notes. It was my guest, Diana Shanley, and we were talking about finding joy. And she gave some really great feedback on this as well, which is very similar to what we're talking about. So I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. I love to share here what I'm learning. And if I feel like it's really helpful for me, I'm going to always share it with you guys because I'm, if it resonates with you or just one person, I'm ecstatic. Like, that's so fun. I'd love to hear from you on this topic. You guys can always send me messages. I'm on Instagram. My email is in the show notes. You can send me feedback there. I would love to continue this conversation because it's such an important topic. Like, I want to know, do you guys have hobbies that you love already? And that you're passionate about? Do you find joy and passion in the work that you're doing? Or are you just like, I'm so busy, I cannot even think about tapping into that? Like, that's just another thing on my to-do list. I'm very curious. So let me know if you're like, no, there's no capacity for this. I feel like even if you're at that point, especially if you're at that point, that might mean you do need to try to figure out how to do some of this work, because you may need it if you're feeling that way, something to help give you some new spark, that burnout feeling. There's things we can do to help with that. So this is something I continue to work on, of course. I also feel like I said, it depends where we are. What season of life are we in, especially as moms? What stage are our kiddos at? So it's never too late to start something new or try to figure out something new that interests you or a new hobby. It's just never too late to try something new. So if this isn't called to you, that's okay too. No pressure. So I think these are just questions that are interesting to think about and contemplate. But I do think everyone could benefit from doing something that interests us and adding a little play and joy into our lives. So thank you so much for being here. I do have a newsletter I'd never mentioned, but I share tips on my newsletter about skin, healthy skin, and updates on the podcast and topics that we're talking on the podcast. So you can definitely sign up for that. I also do different offers and sales for my skincare line. So if you are not signed up for the newsletter, I will link where you can sign up. It's really easy. And you get 15% off your first, or actually it's 20%. You get 20% off your first order with Simply Jess when you sign up for that. Just go to my show notes and you can find all my information. Please send me a message. I hope that this helps, and I hope that it resonated with you. Thanks for being here, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.